basketball, college football. I'm your host, Grayson, and today we're going to talk about the USC Trojans. I haven't talked a ton about USC so far this year outside the season predictions, but I've been impressed. I've been impressed by what I've seen so far from them. They came out, they took care of business against Fresno State this past weekend, and they continue to just put up a ridiculous amount of points. They're currently averaging 50 points per game, 7th in the country. We knew that coming in. Lincoln Riley, great track record of putting up points. That's just what he did during his time at Oklahoma. And frankly, it would shock me if by the end of the year, USC isn't a top, probably 3 or 4 offense in the country. They definitely have a chance to be the best offense in the country as well. We all know that. And I think so far this year, what you're seeing is a team that has a true identity offensively. With Caleb Williams, they're definitely relying on him to make a lot of plays, but I've been impressed with their ability to run the football. Travis Dye, Austin Jones, those two guys have been really good for them, especially against Fresno State. And I think that's important because Caleb Williams really does need a run game, because when the run game gets going for him, it makes him really tough to stop as a passer. When he's in play action situations or when he's just in read option situations, he's able to make a lot of plays with his arm and his leg. So that's massive. I think when you look at this team, you kind of look at the offense and you think that it kind of stops there, because you see guys like Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, obviously Caleb Williams, you got Travis Dye, Austin Jones, and you see all these big names and, a solid offensive line, and that's kind of all you focus on, right? And I know the defense does have some warts, and I know as we get deeper in the season, those things are going to show more, but right now, they're playing pretty good defense, and especially in the areas that truly do matter and the areas that I think can cover up some of the bigger mistakes that they make. And the reason for it is they're first in the country in turnover margin at plus 10, which is fantastic. They have 14 sacks, which is second in the country, 26 tackles for loss, which is 12th in the country. Those 3 numbers right there just speak to the disruptiveness of their defense and the fact that they've just been playing opportunistic defense. They're forcing turnovers. When they have an opportunity to get a sack, they're doing it. When they have an opportunity to get in the backfield and create, negative game scripts for opposing offenses, it's worked out extremely well. And I think when you put all that together, it's led to these kind of landslided results. And I frankly have been impressed. I think Alex Grinch is still a guy who, as a defense coordinator, he's good, not great in my eyes. And I think right now they are relying on the turnovers, and they're getting beat. They're giving up big plays. They're giving up some points. But in general, I think his turnovers that he's been able to scheme, along with the talent that he has, it's been able to mask some of those. So that has been really impressive. And I think for me, I like looking kind of towards the future a little bit and seeing what they have left on their schedule. And for me, there's 4 games that truly do matter that I think are potentially losable. At Oregon State, at Utah, at UCLA, Notre Dame. I will admit, I'm not saying that they're going to lose these. Matter of fact, I think they're going to be probably the favorite in all but one of these, which I'll talk about here in a second. But I think at UCLA, that game looks super winnable. I haven't been impressed by UCLA at all. We know that home crowd is not going to be overwhelming. We've seen it already this year. I mean, it's frankly embarrassing how few folks show up to their games. Notre Dame, on the other hand, has just not impressed me either. They barely got by Cal, and now they get Notre Dame. I don't think USC is going to lose that game. So that's 2 of those games crossed off already for me, and now it gives me 2 games left. And one of them is this weekend against Oregon State on the road, and the other is at Utah in a few weeks. So speaking of that Oregon State game, let's talk about it. Now, I will say, I think where we're at right now, that basically is me telling everyone that their floor right now is 10-2. And I truly do believe that at this point in the year. They've shown me a lot, barring injuries, everything like that. This is going to be at least a 10-win team. That's impressive to already be at that point in the year. Speaks to the Pac-12 being somewhat down, also speaks to their schedule, but also it speaks to what Lincoln Riley's been able to bring there on the offensive side of the ball for a team that was 4-8 a year ago. So USC travels to Corvallis. USC is a 6.5-point favorite. Over-under is 70.5 points. Vegas is thinking lots of points here. Makes a lot of sense. 2 offenses that have both played really well this season. And they also have a common opponent. Oregon State beat Fresno State kind of in not miracle fashion, but it was definitely a very close game. They won 35-32. USC beat up on Fresno State a little bit, but obviously Oregon State had to go there. USC got them at home. I think when you look at Oregon State, I know growing up, at least, you remember Oregon State with big upsets, especially against Oregon. You remember those games where that place just gets rocking, and it can be a huge problem for the team that travels there. And so I do view this as a major trap game. I think that USC is going to come in there and, with all these offensive weapons, and they're forcing turnovers, they're creating havoc, and I think that those things maybe don't translate as quickly when you go on the road. And I think what I've seen from Oregon State is a team that's already been tested with matchups against Fresno State and Boise State. This is a team that I think is feeling really good about themselves, and I think they have a fan base that is getting behind this team a little bit. So I think you're going to see a full house. You're going to see USC going to this road environment, something that they frankly have not seen yet, a road environment like this, and it could be an issue. Let me start there. It could be an issue. I think that Oregon State does some things interesting on offense that I think will pose a threat to USC. But I think on the flip side, I don't know if Oregon State's physical enough. And I think when I watch USC play, that's the biggest thing. When they go up against a team that is very, very physical, such as Utah in a few weeks, I think they could have problems. And I think that's the kind of team that can really make them sweat. Whereas Oregon State's just a team that might be able to keep up scoring-wise. But the physicality, I'm not sure if it's all the way there. So that's kind of where I'm at with this one. I think it could be a back-and-forth type game. I do think Oregon State's going to make them sweat, but I think USC survives here. I do think it'll be a closer game than many people think. I think it'll probably be something like 37-34. USC wins this game. But I am super fascinated in this one. I think it's going to be a really fun one, a little bit of a shootout. But ultimately, I think USC's talent and their quarterback eventually lead them to a huge win. And again, that gets you to the point where I'm sitting there going, okay, this team might be 11-1. This team might go to that would put them in the Pac-12 championship, and that makes them a legit CFP contender this season. USC has definitely made a huge rise in my power rankings and my viewpoint of them since the beginning of the year. So thanks for joining. Later on in the week, I will have my best bets going into the weekend. But outside of that, thanks for watching Crystal Ball College Football.